Constitutional lawyer Kamodo Iganjo still here with me in studio. And so what happens then moving forward? If today was a success, according to those who we've spoken to, then how do you build on that momentum? And of course, I'm sure also on the other side, those who are against the BBI, they'll also have a strategy in mind.
Well, the first thing is to ensure that, one, to redefine the message again, to ensure that the message is right, is simple, and in a way that people understand. But number two, who the messengers are. Because part of the problem in this process has been a lot of people who've been selling this message have sold it with a lot of arrogance and power play. A lot of them have been civil servants. And I think what needs to happen now, past political conversations to politicians who have credibility, let them be the ones who sell this to the people. Don't allow civil servants to be the ones and provincial administration. So that is going to be important, the message and the messengers. And then continue to deconstruct the hustler, the William Ruto presidency, if that is the route you want to go. For example, and I've listened just now, the deputy president complaining about government doesn't send 15%. He's the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya. So even as he offers himself as the successor to President Uhuru, he has to choose two things. Either to say that because Jubilee has done so well, so elect me as president. But you cannot be the deputy president, say the government has failed, and offer yourself as a solution. I mean, that is the ultimate height of irrationality. You either accept that the Jubilee has failed, in which case you've been part of that failure, and then allow the Bufoli, Wakolis, and the others to take that seat, but you cannot be part of the government, a very senior officer, and your campaign is that this government has not even paid money to counties, and so therefore, I am the solution to the country. So those are some of the conversations. You have a problem
clearly with that narrative.
I have a problem with that narrative because it is unfortunate that this narrative has not allowed to be questioned. Even the narrative about the pro-people policy. We have to look at people's CVs. If you tell me, for example, people like Moses Kuria, for example, if I go to Gatongo to South, you can tell me Moses is a hustler because I've seen him do pro-poor programs. What are the pro-poor programs that have been done by the deputy president until now? So those are issues that we need to have, and they are there.
He isn't here to respond next time.
No, I'm just saying, I'm sure those are conversations, and I'm not saying he hasn't. I'm just saying those are the conversations that must be held now on substantive issues, both on BBI and on the presidential campaign, and who merits to hold that seat called the presidency of Kenya.
You raise an interesting point. Let me get a quick reaction from Dr. Karugu, who we have now back on. And Daktari, obviously, I'm sure you saw the results of Pollstar TIFA last month, revealing that only 36% or so of President Uhuru Kenyatta supporters will approve the amendments to the 2010 Constitution in a public vote as compared to maybe supporters of a different candidate. Those are the numbers that were there about a month ago or so. Even if you meet leaders for a 2-3 day meeting, does that mean you've then convinced their followers that this is the way to go?
Well, Wahiga, I guess that means that we have taken the first and most fundamental step. The truth is, BBI is not understood. BBI still remains a gray area for a lot of people, especially here in Mashinani. So the first step is for the leaders themselves, who the people have elected, to understand what the BBI is and what is in the BBI for Mwananchi, which is what His Excellency the President is here in Nyeri trying to do. He's put together the MCAs, the MPs, governors, the youth leaders, and the youth themselves to make sure that we started from the top, from the leaders themselves, the people opinion leaders, and people opinion shapers also, to get to understand what is in the BBI and what is the need for their people. The second step, of course, will be for us, all of us who understand now the BBI as leaders, to take the next step and take it down to Mashinani, take it down and simplify it with language that is palatable. And I want to agree with Wakili when he says the people who brought the BBI initially came with a lot of arrogance and a lot of chest thumping, and that is not the spirit you'll see from Sagana 3. Now going forward, you'll see a spirit that is more persuasive, more a spirit of let us sit down and understand what the BBI is, what is the need for Mwananchi, what is the need for our youth, what is the need for our women, as opposed to chest thumping and what we have been hearing people saying, "Hii kitu ni lazima ipite." You will see a total different change now going forward.
Let me ask you this, Deputy Governor, and you can respond briefly. There has been some disquiet about what the government has done, for example, in the Mount Kenya region, and you're a deputy governor there, a narrative that seems to have taken root, at least amongst some. What is the reality on the ground? What has worked in terms of government projects? What hasn't? How would you, briefly respond to that?
And I want to say this. It's not the first time that this is happening in Mount Kenya. I want us to take 2 steps back and remember the days of His Excellency Mwai Kibaki. You remember we were saying, you know, Mwai Kibaki is not speaking, he's quiet, there's nothing that is going on in Mount Kenya. It is a trend and perhaps our tradition as Mount Kenya people, perhaps not to see what is being done for tomorrow. A lot of these things that His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta is doing are going to be things that will benefit us, you know, for posterity. Take, for instance, the revival of the railroad. The revival of the railroad is a great catalyst for economic activity within the region. It might not be visible just now, but it's going to be visible in long term. If you look at the amount of investments that His Excellency the President has put into our infrastructure,
okay,
it is, of course, it's not visible now, but in the long term, and when you draw the whole economic matrix, you'll be able to see we'll be able to produce more. We're talking about the tea reforms and soon the coffee reforms. All these things are going to spur economic activities, and the infrastructure is a catalyst that's going to be able to take the Mount Kenya region to the market, to Kenya, to the region, and globally to the world. So there are things that we might not see now, and I do not blame those who are saying that they don't see what has been done, because you know, a lot of these things can only be seen by people who are able to see with the eyes of the future.
Okay, thank you so much, Deputy Governor. And Wakili, we still have you here in studio. There are those who say we don't have it's not that we have an issue with a constitutional process to amend the 2010 Constitution. We just feel there hasn't been sufficient public participation on this particular initiative. We wish there was more time to encapsulate more views. How do you respond to those who feel here tonight that that is where they stand?
And maybe that's not a very illegitimate complaint. I think, especially because the birthing of the 2010 Constitution was a very people-centered process. This process has been very politicized. Don't forget that the birth of BBI was around a political settlement. And so in a sense, they're then tended to be owners of the BBI and those who are on the outside. And that does not help the process, because ultimately this constitution, even if it is passed by a simple majority, is going to bite all of us. So it's very, very important, even going forward, that we move the BBI from its political owners to ensure that it's more public document by emphasizing its substance. And I think this is the process to do that. And part of the public participation is actually what is going to happen going forward, by explaining to people what is in the document. People don't recognize it's got 75 amendments. What do they mean, and what are the implications of each of those amendments? That is the public participation that must happen between now and when we have the referendum. The advantage of this is that because it is a popular initiative process, Kenyans will eventually vote, and the best way to publicly participate is by voting yes or no. So to that extent, it's a good process. It could have been better, but I think it has, you know, I wouldn't say that it's gone below what you'd call a reasonable threshold.
Kamodho Ganjo, constitutional lawyer, thank you so much for finding time. I hope we can call you for a different show. Take more time to go through those 73 or so amendments. And
I would be available.
Thank you. And thank you for finding time for us. I believe we now take a break. Right. You're watching Citizen Weekend. Hopefully you understand a little bit of the grand scheme of things when it comes to what happened in Sagana today.